In this video, we're going to take a look at the different parts of a Java program. One thing I do want to point out before we get into all of these, that NetBeans automatically, when we create a project, puts our classes into a package. So part of what we saw in the previous video, we have a class, and our class is down here. But at the very top of this Java file, this .java file, we do see that this class and any other classes that might be in this file are part of a package called Hello World. So I did want to point that slight difference out because the rest of these slides just discuss the class, and the class begins here. So here are the different parts. We have a class name, a main method, we have the statements, we have statement terminators, reserved words, comments, and blocks. So let's go look at these. Every Java program must have at least one class. Every class has a name. By convention, class names start with an uppercase letter. In this example, the class name is called welcome. So right here we see public, and this tells the accessor who can use this class. And then the word class is basically saying this line right here is called the class declaration. So public says any other class that wants to can use this class. So public class, and the class is called welcome. And welcome starts with an uppercase letter. Okay, so by convention means we always name classes with uppercase. If there is more than one word in the class name, each word gets uppercase for the initial letter, and the rest is lowercase. Inside, I want to point out that inside the class we have a starting curly brace, and at the very end we have an end curly brace. Okay, so the class begins here, and it ends at the closing curly brace. Inside of this class, we have a main method. So let's take a look at that up close. Line 2 defines the main method. In order to run a class, the class has to have a method called main. So somewhere in a project, there has to be a class that has a main method in it. And inside that class, Java will look for that main method, and that's where the code will start running. So the main method also starts with the word public in this case. It has this keyword static that we'll talk about later. It has a keyword void that we'll talk about later. And then it has the main method, which is right here. It says main. After the word main, we have a set of parentheses. Anytime you see parentheses following a word, you're talking about a method. It means a set of code that does some instructions, basically. Inside the parentheses, there are some things called arguments or parameters. We can accept arguments into our parameters. We'll talk a lot more detail about that later on. So you don't need to completely understand what all these keywords do. Just recognize this idea of public, static, void, main. We're looking for that keyword main, followed by some parentheses. Okay, this is the main method signature. Okay, and then opening curly brace. I apologize for that. My dog's gotten excited because somebody must be at the door or outside upstairs. That happens once in a while. You may also hear throughout this course her ears flap when she gets up and shakes her head. I don't go back and restart videos. So here we go. Sorry. All right. So the main method begins with the method declaration, and then open curly brace, and ends with a curly brace. Okay. Now this other curly brace down here, if we go back to our class, okay, we have two curly braces. The first one, our main method, here's opening curly brace, closing curly brace. and then inside the class, an opening curly brace and an end curly brace. So they always come in pairs and they're nested inside of each other. Inside the main method, we have a statement. In this case, this is where we did the system.out.println, hello world or welcome to Java. I guess we did it both ways in the previous video. So a statement represents an action, or you can have a sequence of actions. We could put multiple lines of code that would run. In this case, it's one line of code that just prints out welcome to Java. At the end of each statement, we have a statement terminator, and in Java, the statement terminator is the semicolon. You have to have a semicolon at the end of a statement. So these other lines were declarations, and they ended with curly braces, open curly braces and end curly braces, but an individual statement has a semicolon at the end. Keywords are words that have specific meaning to the compiler, and we can't use them for any other purpose. So when the compiler sees the word class, it understands that the word after class is the name for a class. When it sees the word public, that has a special meaning that we'll talk about later. The word, same as the keyword static, has special meaning to the compiler. So those are reserved words. Those keywords, we can't use those for anything else. Like we would never want to name a method static or try and name a method void because they're reserved words and they have special meaning. We don't use them for anything else. So I've been talking about these braces. Okay, a pair of braces in a program forms a block that groups parts of a program together. So here's our public class test. Here's the opening curly brace, and down here is the closing curly brace. So this is the class block. The entire thing is the class block. The curly braces group the block together. We also have a method block. The beginning of the main method has a curly brace, and it has an end curly brace. And they both have to work in pairs, and that's the method block. So the class block in this case contains one method block, which is the main method. So we're always looking for those in pairs. Special symbols, opening curly braces, closing curly braces, they denote a block of code. Open and closing parentheses, they always work in pairs, used with methods. We saw those. We can also have opening and closing brackets, and those are used with things called arrays that we'll get to later in the course. Some other special symbols, double slashes, that precedes a comment line. Double quotations, this is double quote open, double quote close. Those are opening and closing quotation marks. They enclose a string or a sequence of characters. In our case, they did hello world or welcome to Java. They enclose that string. So inside the pair of parentheses, we had a pair of quotation marks, and inside that pair of quotation marks, we had a string, which is what was printed out. Okay? And then our semicolon, which ended our statement. So lots of punctuation in Java. A lot of them come in pairs, and we need to make sure that they always work in pairs. Okay, and we see the pairs here of the curly braces. In this one, we see pairs of parentheses. Okay, so the main method here had a pair of parentheses with the string args inside of it. The print line had a pair of parentheses with welcome to Java inside it. Semicolon for the terminator. And right above the name of the class, there was a comment. So the double slash, those are forward slashes, two of them together, denotes a line as a comment. This program prints welcome to Java. The compiler ignores anything that's in a comment. It doesn't do anything. This is a note we write to ourselves or to anybody else that looks at our code to explain what the code does. Quotation marks. We saw the quotation marks around a string or a sequence of characters like welcome to Java that denotes them as a sequence of characters. And that's going to be it for this section. We're going to talk about styles, programming styles in the next video. How do we use those comments? How do we name things the correct way? How do we make our code look good? How do we make our blocks look good? And it's not just about looking good, it's making it easy to read. That's in the next video.